Okay. I have no idea whether I'm supposed to be recording or not, but I feel like I'm being pushed to go ahead and speak. Um, Earlier or yesterday, I guess it would be, I put out a video about Pastor Moon passing, and that weighed heavily on me yesterday and into today. And the reason was because although I didn't know her, she did play a pivotal role in the things that I'm doing now. So I just wanted to go and put down the story of what happened. So I'm going to try to do that now. So years and years ago, I ended up having an issue with scripture. And this is like over 20 years ago. And I ended up feeling like I believed in God, I believed in Jesus, but just the scripture was just dragging me under. I felt like it was killing me, so I didn't want to have nothing to do with that. Well, that didn't last that long, and I got past it. And there's a story to that too. But years later, I don't know, maybe 10 to 12 years later, I ended up having a problem again. And the reason why I had a problem with scripture this time was because I was binge reading, and I ended up reading something and it felt like it was just thrown in there. And because it felt like it was just thrown in there, I felt like it wasn't that it was just thrown in there. It was that there were other stuff that was taken out. And then I got frustrated and mad and upset basically with humanity, because I felt like, how come people don't want us to know anything? So why are they just, why is everything just secretive and manipulative? And I got frustrated, and I was like, again, I still believe in God, I still believe in Jesus, but I don't like scripture because of the touch of humanity. And I'm not sure, like, because I didn't know any of this stuff was going to be important, but I'm not sure if before that I was asking for knowledge and wisdom, just in general, asking God, or whether that came in between time. It probably happened before. So anyway, so what happened was I just again made this declaration because of the fact that I felt like people were tampering with scripture, and that's why it was like it was. And I'm not exactly sure what day that happened, but I do know it was a few days before I watched Pastor Moon on Wednesday night Bible study online with the Potter's House. But I remember, and the reason why I say that is because I'm saying that because I would watch church on Sunday, and if I couldn't catch it on Sunday morning, I would watch it at night because the Potter's House will replay it. And I don't have any recollection of having an issue with, am I gonna watch church in the morning or am I gonna catch it at night if I couldn't, because of what was going on with me in regard to scripture. However, so in terms of the timeline, it feels like it had to happen like Sunday afternoon or maybe Monday morning. It had to be after uh, the Sunday service, because I didn't have no issue with watching it. I don't have no recollection of having an issue with watching it. So to fast forward and how the story goes, I'm sitting at a computer, and all of a sudden this thought just pops into my mind. And the thought was, it's clear as day, and I didn't hear anything in regard to this. It's just a thought came into my mind, and it was, what you gonna do about Wednesday night Bible study? And it kind of tickled me a little bit because it's called Wednesday night Bible study, and my issue is the Bible. So I don't want to have nothing to do with that. And now the question is, what you gonna do about Wednesday night Bible study? So my nature is at times to procrastinate. So I say it to myself, well, I ain't gonna think about it right now. I just wait until it get closer, and then I'll think about it and figure it out. I have a bad habit of not, like, time and days are not, unless I have something that I definitely had to get done, I can lose the day. Like, you ask me what day it is, and I'm not going to be sure sometimes. And so it's one of those moments. Because now, to myself, I'm saying, okay, well, that's Wednesday. I'll figure it out when Wednesday get closer. What day is it? Just like that commercial, the older folks know, what day is it? What day is it? The hump day commercial with the camel. Yeah, well, what day is it? Oh, it's Wednesday. Now, my procrastination runs deep, so now the next phase of it for me is, okay, well, it's Wednesday. What time is it? I'm just going to chill out a little bit, and then when it get closer, I make a decision. What time is it? I look at the clock. It's 10 minutes before the Wednesday night Bible study come on. Now, the catch with this is, I ain't gonna say that being on time has been my strong suit. But the catch is, it take a while for all this computer stuff to work out like it's supposed to. So 10 minutes is the exact perfect time for me to get situated so I could be ready when it starts. So now I end up in this situation where it's like, it's like it was laid in my lap. It was spoon fed, right? Perfect time in your mind. What you gonna do about a Wednesday night Bible study? I don't know. I'll wait. What day is it? Wednesday. Okay, well, I'll wait till a little bit later. What time is it? Oh, it's the perfect time for you to sit down and turn it on so you can be there on time. And I am so in my feelings in terms of, I ain't fooling with this Bible no more. These people and all of that stuff, that I kind of got this attitude, and my attitude is like smart aleck. I don't know what they call it these days. It's probably not the type of attitude you want to come into anything in terms of God, because you can get checked, and that ain't what you want. But I do have this snotty attitude where it's kind of like, well, okay, because the lesson that was fresh on me just overall over that time period was about Jacob. Because I recognized that Jacob's quality was obedience, and he was following, the instruction of his mama. And, at that point, it was kind of like looking at God like, you know how we look at like these movies with these mob bosses where it's this little kid that's abandoned, but they got something about them. You know what I mean? They got something about them. And I felt like that's kind of how Jacob was. He had something about him. His quality was obedience because of his obedience to his mama. But the stuff that they was doing wasn't necessarily right. But like that mob boss would be like, I see something in that kid. It's the same way God would say, well, that's what I like about the kid. Now I got to straighten them out, but that quality is what I'm going to use. You understand what I'm saying? So the quality, the big thing that shone was, shine was obedience. Because I hear, and the reason why, because I love Jacob as a character because he was very human. Is the Bethel, the tithe, all these different things, but it was the obedience. So I'm sitting there smart aleckly And I'm saying, okay, well, if you really about something, like I'm thinking this in terms of God, like I'm gonna check it out. You know, I'm gonna follow the instruction. Instruction would be to be obedient. So I'm just gonna be obedient. I'm gonna see what happens, right? So I said, okay, let me get up. Perfect timing, everything. I'm gonna sit down in front of the computer, and I'm gonna watch this, and I'm gonna be obedient. And the thing that caught me first was when I got it on and I sat down. There go Pastor Moon, and guess what she gonna talk about? Jacob and Esau. And I'm like, oh, you know, that type of stuff touch your heart, because it's kind of like a hug from God. Like, it's real deep. So that got me on, you know, back in my vibe, because I can admit to, I feel like I've been spoiled. Like, you get spoiled in a way where you don't recognize that you spoiled until you hear some of the comparison, like stuff that people say. But so off the top, that got me just feeling it, right? And I'm like, you know, because I'm happy, because I'm sad before, because I'm in this weird place. I just don't, like, I love God, I love Jesus and all of that stuff. Like, I recognize the real and the truth and all of that, but connecting in the scriptures, but it put me back in my little spoiled zone, because I'm smart alecky, just acting like a brat. I'm okay, well, I'm gonna be obedient, and then I do it, and I sit down, and you get your prize. It's kind of like, okay, now she gonna talk about Jacob Esau. I had no idea, but it was like a pleasant surprise. It put me back on. It made me say, humble yourself a little bit, right? So now, Pastor Moon is standing up there, and she's told people where to go, and I still don't know. I want to see that video, but I just need to see the beginning part. And she tells people where to go, and then she starts talking, like, while they trying to find it in their Bible. And then she says, she meets me exactly where I was at, because my problem was that I felt like they was chopping up the scripture, putting in what they wanted to and leaving out the stuff that they didn't want in there, and it was a secret, and why is it a secret, and all of that. And so she gonna straightway come out and say she already done put me on cloud nine, because she talking about Jacob and Esau. But then she gonna pop up and say, because the story is kind of choppy. And the catch was, that wasn't the story that set me off. And I never realized, I never had stopped to think how choppy that story actually is, and it never bothered me. But the fact that she said the word choppy, and it just touched my spirit, like right where I was at. I'm talking about, you know how people say your nose is wide open? And I think that's an expression that kind of has some truth to it, especially if you can't breathe all that wonderful. It literally opens up your, like, your sinuses, and it's like alive. Like, my spirit was wide open. And then I heard, read it again. Read it again. Them 3 words set it off. And I actually heard those words. Now, if you was in there, you wouldn't have heard nothing. And the catch is, even if you had heard it, you wouldn't know what it pertains to. But I knew what it pertained to. It was telling me, I was being told, go back to the story of Jacob and Esau and read it again. Now, you have to remember, like I said, Pastor Moon just started. She ain't even started yet. She waiting on people. She ad-libbing, because she just waiting on people to find the scripture. I done came from this already not wanting to have nothing to do with Bible study. I'm going to do it anyway, because I'm just being smart alecky with the obedience thing. But I did it. And I'm sitting there, and yeah, I got a consolation prize for doing it, for showing up, or the prize for showing up. But And now she got my nose wide open, and you would think, especially because you're hearing stuff and it's meeting you right where it's at, and it's perfect timing, which is God's strong point, is time. But guess what my attitude is? My attitude then becomes, I don't know if I'm going to do that. Right? Because I'm going to sit here for an hour, and then after that, I'm finna go back and read scripture again. And so now I'm having this dilemma, and it's bratty. But the catch was, the theme is obedience. So guess what I do? After she do the Wednesday night Bible study, I go back in the room and I start looking at it again. And then it made sense. Where I hadn't seen these things before. Where the tie, and that's what I thought all the scripture was about after then, but it turned out to be a much bigger thing. But what I thought it was how it turned out in this story. With the blessing, and it's probably more than I'm going to talk about right now, but the blessing and the birthright and this, the whole thing, the whole story was tied to pots of food. That was the connection to the story. The pot of food was how the story comes together, and if you feel like the story is choppy, once you realize that the connection is the pot of food, then it's not as choppy anymore. 2 pots of food. One was what got the birthright. The other one was what got the blessing. But the reason why the pots are important because it shows everybody's quality. It shows that Esau was not fit for the gift, because if you're willing to give your birthright over for a pot of food that you are going to, by the scriptures perspective, pass through the drought, probably not for you, right? And we're just talking about the birthright, because that comes from your father. So that would say your father is willing to give you everything. And the catch is, Esau didn't go to his father and say, hey, I'm finna starve. Can I have a little bit of food so I can get back out there and get on my feet? He could have did that. He could have said to his mama, because his mama ain't going to let him die, because his daddy would probably have a fit. And plus, that's her baby too. Mama, can I have something to eat? You know. He doesn't do that. He doesn't look at God and say, I'm finna starve to death, or you going to feed me or let me die. He didn't do any of that. He made a bum deal with his brother, which his brother catches a lot of flack for, but it wasn't secret. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't no devil in the details. It was straightforward. And so Esau's not fit, okay? And the pot of food displays that. The pot of food also speaks toward their father Isaac, because, look, Isaac, you wasn't going to have them babies except that God gave them to you. Not just in a sentimental perspective, it's in the scripture where Isaac has to entreat God for the children, because one reason or another, them babies ain't coming yet. So the purpose of him having children was a continuation of the blessing from Abraham to Isaac. Okay, well, Isaac needs children to continue the blessing, right? But the catch is, your daddy don't get to determine the blessing. It's like Abraham didn't get to determine what child was going to be the successor. He was okay with Ishmael. God's telling him, no, I got Isaac for that. You know what I'm saying? So Isaac, through the pot of food, you recognize that Isaac doesn't really realize that he's not in charge of that part. And there's a continuation of that later on when you get the Jacob blessing Ephraim or Ephraim over Manasseh, and Joseph having an issue with it. And Joseph actually puts his hands on Jacob. Remember, Jacob is lamed out from the bottom down, but he probably got that strength, and that old man's strength. He could have said, boy, if you don't get your hand off of me. But he didn't. He's like, I know. Because what he understood was, this is not, he's saying it, but it's not his call, it's God's call. And so with Isaac, the way they displayed his quality in regard to the pot was how the plan for well, when you started out, Isaac is asking for a particular pot of food with a particular kind of meat, and the meat that they bring him is not that meat. It's a whole nother kind of meat. I think he wanted, I forgot what he wanted, but I think they brought him something else. I had to go back and look at it. But go look at it. Go look at it. You'll see it's a different kind of pot. So he didn't even, his taste buds wasn't there. And they telling you his vision wasn't there. He's not fit to pass the blessing because it's not his decision. His senses won't even allow him to know what is what. And so you understand that from the pot because it displays Isaac's qualities. So how does it display Jacob's qualities? The pot displays Jacob's qualities because it wasn't Jacob's decision. Jacob catches a lot of flack, but it wasn't his decision. It was his mama's decision. So what's Jacob's quality? And rightfully so, because that's his mama, right? His quality was obedience. And that shows you the understanding why Jacob could be chosen. Why it wasn't Isaac's decision. Why Esau wasn't fit. And the mama, as far as she goes, she gets a lot of criticism, and we always criticize the women, but God told her long time ago what was going to happen. And there was the eagerness of the mother. You got to recognize that quality. And, you know, men in Scripture also have that quality where God tells you something, you get eager. It's like everybody now, a lot of people are waiting for something to happen. You're eager about something that God has spoken, but God in time. But anyway, so I learned that about the story. I learned that about how it ties together. I learned that there was a difference in all the things that you hear and the perceptions. A lot of times it's about Jacob and it's negative, and it's about his mama and it's negative. It's about Esau, but it doesn't quite say the truth in regard to why Esau wasn't fit. So people say, oh, Esau got cheated. No, he wasn't fit for that blessing. He was never going to get it. God told Rebekah when she was pregnant what was going to happen. So, and even with Jacob and Rebekah, Rebekah said that she was going to take the blame for it. So just do what I say. And it was through obedience. So you get everybody's quality. And it's through a tie of those two pots of food, which, of course, food is very important in the Scripture if you don't know that. Going all the way back to Adam and Eve, don't eat the fruit off the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Right? So food is a big, and there's a lot of stuff in with all of that stuff too. But anyway, so that's where I started, and it got set off by Pastor Moon and that particular day, which I still want to know exactly what that day was. So, but the progression of it went from that story, and because it was in Genesis, and I was, you know, the world is talking about relationships and stuff at that time, and I was thinking about Adam and Eve. I went back to the Adam and Eve story. Learned the Adam and Eve story in a way that I had never ever heard, never ever considered before. So that was the second time, right? Because the first time I got it just through obedience. The second time I got it through curiosity. And I said, well, let me see. If this story's doing this, what is this story doing? And I went, and guess what? Boom, like the story just started exploding. I'm telling y'all, that story is on point. But the real test was the next part. The next part was, okay, I see what it's doing now. I want to go find it. So, the obvious thing to do would go further back. And so what did I go back to? The story before that, creation story. And I did start that. And what I had, someone was telling me, just get rid of that. It's not it. Got rid of that. And as soon as I started the next time, man, that story is crazy. That story is, like, you can't imagine how well put together that story is. And all of this started back at that day, that Wednesday, with the obedience getting to the Bible study and Pastor Moon and all of that. So I'm making this video just to talk about it. I don't know if I expressed what I was trying to say as well as I want to, but I just want to get it documented while I'm able to. So that's the story of, so in the future, if you like, how do you know all this stuff? How are you figuring this out? That's how it happened. That's the story. And that's why I can't tell my story of how it came to be without mentioning Pastor Moon. So that's the story, and I'll see you later.